name's Riley Miller. I work for Elephant Mountain Vineyards. I grew up in Olympia, Washington, which is not a big ag town, and pretty much just had a normal kid life, played sports, ran around outside. Decided I wanted to go to Washington State University, not UW, so go Cougs. And I was going to study architecture, and there was a real quick moment where I decided I did not want to be at a desk my whole life and under artificial lights. Yeah, I didn't want to be a researcher, and so I was like, well, I got to go out in the field, and stumbled my way into viticulture and enology. And so, because wine, you know, it's a little more fun than potatoes. I started out, they require you to do an internship in school, and so there was a local winery, Mary Cellars, which maybe did a couple thousand cases, that wanted free help during harvest, and so a few classmates of mine and I went and worked there. And after that, I finished school and I packed a bag and went to New Zealand. And I worked on the winery side of things at a place called Kim Crawford, 25,000 tons of Sauv Blanc coming in on dump trucks. It was very different than the small Pullman winery that I had just interned at, but it was wicked fun, and I made a lot of friends, and it really cemented the fact that I thought I was in the right industry. The whole time I happened to work under these winemakers, and the emphasis was always, hey, we're shepherding great fruit into making great wine. Like, our whole job is to not mess it up. And so there was always this really great emphasis on vineyards. Coming back from Australia, I decided to move back to Washington. I'd had my fun. And that's when I decided to just kind of make the switch into the vineyard side of things. Not just the bigger places. I mean, every place there's a standard you set, and there's an attention to detail, right? And the more you're kind of in tune with what's going on around you, right? The more attention you're giving something, first off, it's not ever going to be perfect, right? But when problems arise, you're not surprised, you kind of see things throughout the whole process, and you might be able to maybe have an estimated guess on where it's going to go. And I think that you see that, that's really been important moving to vineyards. I think so often people think, oh, you're just a grower, you add fertilizer and water, and everything's good, but there's a attention to detail that's ridiculously important to growing really high quality grapes. These big farms that are thousands, that's a totally different ballgame, but that's an attention to detail as well, right? I mean, it's your detail just because you have 1 barrel of wine or 10,000 barrels of wine or 1 acre or 10,000 acres, it's not different, right? Its scope is huge, but it's not any different, the amount of effort that has to be put in. That was the biggest thing that I took away was because I worked for people who it was an attention to detail it was just their way of life. It was the highest quality possible. Yeah, so I'm now the vineyard manager at Elephant Mountain. We just grow grapes. We don't make any wine, which is pretty cool. But we also have like one chance to get it right. You have your growing season. You can't, once the grapes are picked, it's all done. And so, so I think probably the biggest thing that I've learned since starting here is nothing goes as it should, right? You can't plan for everything, and there's kind of always this desire to like, oh, if there's a problem, I gotta fix it, especially in winemaking, where it's like, okay, well, I can blend this or do that. You can't always do that in farming. Having been a winemaker for most of my career, when I got started, I think that I know what people are looking for, and not to say I understand the lingo, but I know where they're coming from. I mean, if you're gonna be a grower, yeah, I think it's important to go work in the cellar and figure out, okay, what's going on with my grapes, right? And I think that if I want to be a winemaker, it's important to go spend time in the vineyard, understand at least basically everything that's going on. You don't have to be an expert in it. But I think all you're going to do is you're just going to learn, and it's going to make you either a better grower or a better winemaker to have just a small bit of knowledge of what's going on the other side of the industry. And in my experience, the best winemakers are the guys who are out here regularly, right? They are walking the vines with me. They're pointing things out where they go, hey, what's going on here? And I go, oh, that's good, I'll make a note of that. Let's figure this out. And there is a boots on the ground aspect of it that I think when you know what's going on in the vineyard all year, you know where it's going to head as wine. And so there's an attention to detail that I think the best winemakers and the best grape growers have, and that's being out there and learning both sides of things. And if you're young, I mean, or just getting into the industry, like I did winemaking, I did 10 vintages in the cellar. And I don't think anybody would have thought that all of a sudden I was going to be a vineyard guy. Another thing I would say is travel. Go see things. Just get out in the world. I think I had never traveled before. And I packed a backpack and flew to New Zealand and got off a plane at 2 a.m. and said, what am I doing here? I had never traveled, and it was so awesome. And some of those, I had made great friends. And some of those people I worked with are still like guys I talk to all the time. And it was a hugely rewarding experience, and I got to work in my industry.